Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And we have a returning guest who's coming back for the third time. So we've done two episodes, one back in November 2019 and another one in 2023, which was episode 51 and also more recently, episode 327. So Mike Jones is the managing director of Impact Minerals Limited, an exploration company listed on the ASX with four extensive tenement holdings within Australia, featuring significant potential high-grade mineral deposits of gold, silver, lead, zinc, copper, and nickel. Mike's a graduate from the Royal School of Mines, obviously many years ago, and is a very experienced geologist across Australia and in particular WA. And he's worked on over 80 projects, both in greenfields and near mine exploration, in a variety of mineral terrains during his career. And he's going to give us an update today on the progress of Impact Minerals, and also give us an update on the mining industry in Australia, obviously, plus a lot more. So let's welcome Mike to the podcast. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Rob, I'm very good, thank you. And great to be here. Brand new 2024. So another interesting year ahead of us, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, certainly. Well, hopefully it's going to be better than last year. I mean, I suppose we can't get too much worse than 2023. So 2024 should be a great year coming up. So for those that didn't listen to your previous episodes, obviously I encourage you to go back and listen to those episodes. I wonder if you just give us a brief overview of yourself and also of Impact Minerals.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm the founding managing director of Impact. We listed way back in 2006. So we've been through a significant number of upturns and downturns in the industry, since then. So, and probably have the scars to prove it. And we've always been a project generation company, but always had the intention that should we find a project of the size and scale that we were looking for, then we would take that through to development. And it's always been my opinion that doing a small scale mine is a waste of time. It's a bit like that old quote, it's not worth getting out of bed in the morning for less than 100 or 150,000 ounces of gold a year, and that is certainly the case. And so we've always been looking for a world-class deposit, but they are few and far between. And that's shown and borne out by the success rate, and seeing so many companies come and go over that period of time. So Impact, we've looked at lots of things, but we've always been focused on what I call the core commodities. So gold was always there. We had uranium back in the early days, and but in particular nickel, copper, PGE. And with the nickel and copper in particular, we were always a nickel copper explorer, but they had to change our name to a strategic and battery metals explorer because everyone else was doing the same thing. But we've really not strayed far from those core commodities, except for our high purity alumina project, which I think I spoke about the last episode that we did. We had just got that project here in Western Australia. And that came to us through LinkedIn, of all places. A gentleman that I know, a geologist, Roland Gotthard, he had come across a new way of making high purity alumina using some lake mud, and I was really intrigued by the project. We had a look at the initial financials, etc. And it turned out that this thing, has the potential to be a world-class deposit. And so we're now in the process of putting a mine, hopefully, into production over the next couple of years, and being on the track to development. So, as I say, right, we didn't discover it ourselves as such, but we did discover it on LinkedIn, and that's been the story for the last 8-9 months since we took on the project, and we've progressed it pretty fast since then. So. We're currently trying to look at various deals and trying to get value out of the other projects that we have in the business. We have a company that's hopefully going to do a spin out of some of our gold silver assets later this quarter. And we're looking at other opportunities for the remaining ground that we've got as we get very focused on trying to bring Lake Hope high purity alumina into production.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Obviously, LinkedIn is not just full of recruiters approaching people for either business or candidates, and obviously getting deals on LinkedIn, which is good. And that's good to hear. So anyone listening, it's not just full of recruiters. It can be used as obviously a business tool.
That's right.
And yeah, can you just explain what exactly happened?
Well, we had I'd met Roland, the guy that discovered the project, a couple of times before, and he's obviously a very bright guy. Anyway, he'd been basically fishing on LinkedIn and talking about this particular project he had. And then one of my guys was following it on LinkedIn, and he came to see me one day, and he said, Mike, he said, Roland's drilling for aluminium in sand dunes. And as a naturally curious person, I thought that is a really weird thing. Let's find out what he's up to. And so we, followed up, had a look around, and discovered that, he was getting this high purity alumina out of the top 2 meters of a salt lake, in the middle of nowhere, basically here in Western Australia. At one point, I thought we had something that might be 10 times bigger on our own ground, which is why I was interested at one point. But as it turned out, that was something completely different. So yeah, a little bit of serendipity there allowed us to to get into the project. So I'm certainly glad we did.
Yeah, just wondered if you can just give us an update since we last spoke, probably nearly a year ago. Just wonder what progress has been made with the company and obviously projects.
Yeah, so the focus really has been on Lake Hope, and that project's located about 500 kilometres east of Perth, and it's easy to get to. There's a graded track that runs basically right up to the side of this lake, and it's a classic salt lake, so it's just a flat area. It's a couple of square k's in size, and there are these aluminous muds, aluminium-bearing muds, as I say, in the top 2 meters of the lake. So we've been very focused on getting that into the pre-feasibility study. So since we got the project, which was in late March last year, we've completed a whole range of things, further resource drilling. So we announced a maiden resource, and there's about 900,000 tons of alumina. That's our core thing that we're looking for there. It's good grade, and we've also completed a scoping study. So the scoping study was the big news in terms of the finances, and we can talk about that. But we've basically rolled straight into a pre-feasibility study, which is looking to how we're going to actually process the material and where we're going to build the plant. And then the third critical thing is trying to find customers then for the material that we're going to produce. And HPA is definitely it's a bulk commodity. You need offtake agreements, and you need people that have got specialised, they have special needs for their HPA, and our job is to provide that to them. So it was a very busy year last year. It ticked a whole lot of boxes. As I say, finished the year in November with the scoping study, pre-feasibility study well underway, and we'll have our environmental baseline surveys have been completed. No significant issues that we're aware of. Final reports will come through, and that'll then control when we decide to lodge a mining lease application. And at that point, things will really kick off on the development front. And that will hopefully marry in with results from the metallurgical test work that we're doing as well.
Yeah. What were some of the main outcomes of the scoping study that you completed on?
So it's really all about the numbers. And so when we first came across the project, it looked like this thing could be very special in terms of that. And so as it turns out, so there's the NPV, even at a 8% discount, is well over 1 billion Australian dollars, about 1.3 billion, and sort of annual cash flows in the sort of 170 to 200 Australian dollars, $1 million a year. But the capex is actually quite a modest 250 million Australian. And certainly compared to our peers in the HPA space who are using a different processing method, that's significantly lower. But the big standout figure was actually the operating costs. So there are byproduct credits with various fertilizer-related byproducts that we'll be able to sell. But taking those into account, it looks like we'd be able to produce HPA for less than $4,000 a ton, which is somewhere between 30 and 50% cheaper than anyone that we know of globally. So it was an absolute breakthrough in terms of the potential for this project to deliver much cheaper HPA into the marketplace, and that would certainly be the one of the distinguishing factors, to allow us to break into what is becoming a slightly more competitive market. There's a number of players in the space, but we believe that we can produce material much cheaper than anyone else. So, and that's a very good place to be in bulk commodities. On LinkedIn, just going back to LinkedIn, the one of the few posts that more than 10 people have read of mine, I pointed out that when you're in the bulk commodity space, one of four things has to be true, and that's one: you either need the biggest deposit, or you need it to be the highest grade, or say, for example, be the first to market. And a good example of that is Pilbara Minerals with their lithium deposit here in Western Australia. Direct shipping of their spodumene, they've been killing it for several years. They've got big contracts in place. They're going to get through the cycle. They're still doing pretty well. But the fourth one is actually to be the cheapest producer. And in that case, you'll get through the cycle. And that's certainly the big attraction for me when I first saw the project, was that this thing always looked like it was going to be a cheap producer. And lo and behold, it's like literally a mile ahead of anybody else that we know of. So that's a great starting point for us.
Yeah, I'm hopefully getting one of the founders on from Pilbara Minerals on the podcast soon. So I'll keep you posted.
No, they did a great job. Their timing in the marketplace was just beautiful. So congratulations to them.
Just wondering if you can just give us any updates on any metallurgical test results that you've may received.
Yeah, so back in October, we released the first 3 of 5 stages of our the results of our process. So the beautiful nature of this material is extremely fine grained and in the top 2 meters of the lake. And so it requires no crushing, no grinding. There's no on-site preparation. It's basically direct shipping ore. So it's literally a case of a man with a digger stockpiling it and then trucking it to wherever we decide to build the plant. So that part of the process is only about 5% of the operating cost. So they're mining and trucking. So compared to a conventional mining operation, that's a very significant difference. So it's all about the process, and we have a patented sulfuric acid leaching process, which is very suitable for the material in the lake. And it had previously been shown to produce 4N. So when you're in the high purity alumina space, it's about producing stuff that is 99.99% pure. That's the benchmark. So that's 4 nines or 4N, as they shorten it to. And so that had been shown at small scale to work. And so our job now is to try and make sure that that works at the larger scale. You can break it down into 5 simple stages. And the first 3 we announced October, everything was sort of on track. And we've got the last 2 stages are in process at the moment. And we should have those results through, within the next 4 to 8 weeks or something like that. There's still quite a bit of a turnaround issues at the lab, but hopefully then we can demonstrate that we've got the right material at the end of it, and then we'll definitely be ticking a big box there and moving forward.
What I suppose, where are you at with your pre-feasibility study, and what are the plans for the remainder of this year around the pre-feasibility study?
So the pre-feas is very focused on the process that I've just mentioned now and optimizing that. So as I mentioned, there's 5 major stages, and we've sort of optimized each one individually of the first 3, and we're working on the last 2. Once that's complete, then we'll be able to run material from start to finish with the optimized process. And at that point, then we'll be able to produce HPA in bulk and consistently, and it's that you need to provide to your end users, to the marketplace. And so the focus of the PFS on the process, also where we're going to build the plant. There are a number of options because it's so cheap to mine and truck. We have a number of options open to us, varying from Kalgoorlie, which is where we sort of base the scoping study. We could be down at Esperance, or maybe even into Perth, and also into a place called Collie. Now, Collie is a very interesting town. It is actually the only coal mining town in Western Australia, and they're closing it down. And so there's actually a significant amount of government funding available if you set up in Collie. So those are the sort of options that we're looking at as part of that PFS. And then the third major component is actually starting to do the marketing in order to be able to provide material for testing and qualification with the end users, which we hope will obviously lead to an offtake agreement and be a significant part of the funding of the major plant when we get to the final investment decision in a couple of years' time. So yeah, it's going to be a very busy year with some major milestones. Hopefully we'll keep the same pace we kept last year and get them all ticked off.
And what are your plans for the rest of your extensive portfolio?
So we've got a number of things in train. So there is it's not a spin out per se of doing ourselves, but we have a group that's purchasing 50% of our gold silver assets in New South Wales. They're looking to list hopefully later this quarter. The prospectus is probably about 80% done, and basically sitting there waiting for the right time to get up and get listed. We'll own about 12% of that company, but still own 49% of the project on listing. And then the other company's got to spend 5 million to earn another 24% to get them to 75, and that'll be a 75-25 joint venture. We've got another big project at Broken Hill, which was the focus of the BHP Explore program that we were on last year. I think we might have mentioned that in the talk. We were part of the first cohort in the new exploration program that BHP are running to help support juniors and private companies. And in fact, the second cohort will be announced tomorrow morning. So that'll be interesting to see who got a Guernsey this time around. We've got a couple of large companies interested in that ground. And then in Western Australia, we are looking quite closely. We've got about another 6 individual projects that need a bit of trimming around the edges. So that's a bit of the focus there. But we do have a significant strategic and battery metals project called Arkin that is here also in Western Australia. It's only about 150 k's east of Perth. You can get there in a couple of hours from here. And over the last few years, we've been exploring that and building it up, and we have generated some very significant anomalies for nickel, copper, PGE, for gold, and also, in particular, recently, rare earths. And we've got a significant copper-only anomaly coming out very shortly as well. And we will be pushing forward with that project as well. So one of the things about the Lake Hope PFS study is that because it's metallurgical test work, there's no extensive cost involved. It's actually a relatively cheap, it'll be the cheapest PFS anywhere when it's completed. And so we can afford to keep going with our exploration on Arkin. And as I like to say, PFS test work's not the sexiest thing to put out in the marketplace. And so, we think we can still got, a significant amount of exploration sizzle to come from Arkin, and we'll have a major drill program there by the middle of the year. So some exciting, conventional exploration results to come. So it's going to be a very busy year.
Yeah. I wonder if you can comment on on the company's balance sheet, and also what are the key drivers of the share price in 2024?
Yeah. So look, we're sitting on just over 3 million, I think, at the end of the last quarter. So, obviously, we're spending money. People don't like talking about capital raising, but obviously we're going to have to raise capital further into the year. But as I've mentioned, it's relatively cheap to do the PFS work. The drilling that we're going to do is air core and RC, again, relatively cheap. So it won't be a big raise, when we do it. But we'll probably look at a share purchase plan this time around for the shareholders to give them an opportunity to get into Lake Hope. That'll be the first opportunity that they've had for that. And who knows when that will actually happen, but that'll certainly help get everything moving as we go. Sorry, what was the second part of the question? I heard the first part about the balance sheet, but
what are the key drivers?
The key drivers
for your share price?
Yeah. Look, last year I did a lot of promotion, a lot of conferences, a lot of podcasts, trying to get the word out there. And I think we've done a reasonable job of that, and that people who know Impact know what we're about, know what we're doing. So I won't be traveling as much this year, and we will be very much focused on announcements. So we've already done the first one for the year, which was a very significant rare earth anomaly in soils at our Arkan project, Hyperion, that was called. It's several square kilometers in size. It looks like it's got all the right characteristics to be one of the ionic leach, ionic clay hosted rare earth deposits. So that's one of the big areas to be drilled. And we've got a lot of news flow, not just from the PFS, but from throughout the whole Arkan project, and a few from the other things as we go along. So we will see a significant increase number of announcements and news flow going forward. So it's and I've known from experience those are the key drivers of the share price. So there's only so many podcasts that I can do, Rob.
Yeah,
so, that's right. And but people want fresh news all the time. It's a hungry marketplace out there, especially right now. So.
yeah, certainly. I just wondering if you just give us an update on the Australian mining industry. We were speaking offline, and I suppose 2023, at the start of 2023, it was booming, and I think after the second half of last year, it obviously started to come off. So, how have you seen the market at the end of last year, and how do you and what's happening in the market now, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, it was an interesting year last year, and definitely some significant events, and the turnaround obviously in the major markets. S&P had another hit a record high. I think it's probably running out of steam a little bit last week. And the Australian market itself isn't too far off its highs, but the resources sector has just been a bit of a malaise over the last 6 months. And unfortunately, it's not getting any better at the moment because the lithium and nickel are just completely in the doldrums, as we know. And the nickel sulfide industry in Western Australia, I think, is under severe threat. And we're probably going to see some significant news from BHP Nickel West, coming up, because there's no way that they can really keep it going, in my view. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It's obviously been replaced slightly by gold and uranium. Uranium at the moment, it's is booming. The shares in all the junior uranium miners are starting to fly, and it's classic. People got to do what they do in our business to survive, and so a lot of old uranium projects being dusted off, and people raising capital, and the same I think in gold. Gold has been like stealth, like a stealth market, over the last 6 to 12 months. It really, the Australian producers are, more than, with a price at north of 3,000 Australian dollars, doing very, very well. So, there's always another mini boom in another commodity somewhere. But I think, uranium is still a very small proportion of the companies and a very small proportion of the market cap in there. I think the devastation that we're seeing in nickel and lithium will be with us for a little while. So it's it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And I wonder also if you can just summarise, obviously, the junior mining space within Australia, and I suppose around financing as well. I think obviously 2023 was a tough year for many of the junior miners out there globally. I just wonder if you just comment on the obviously Australian junior market, and also the financing of some of these junior plays.
Yeah, look, I think most people didn't have trouble raising money last year. The timing might have been a bit off, or people didn't raise money for a couple of the really bad months, August, September, things like that. But a lot of money had been raised at the start of the year, and not a lot of people sort of realised that. But I think it was well over $1 billion in the first quarter, and so a lot of the companies had enough cash to sort of get through the year. And then of course we saw a flurry of activity over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, as the main market turned around. And so it appears that there's not much of there's no shortage of that speculative money for the real junior end of the market. Still, it is all a matter of what price and what incentives there might be to get people involved. But let's see what happens with lithium and nickel, because a lot of people lost a lot of money in the last 6 to 8 weeks. So that may yet flow through to the junior market. So it's again, an interesting year, 2024.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously concluding, just wanted to wonder if you just give us a summary of the outlook for Impact Minerals over the coming year.
The focus, obviously, Lake Hope pre-feasibility study. We have real high hopes to coin a pun of that, getting that project into production over the next couple of years. There's a forecast supply deficit, or at least shortage of HPA around about 2026, and that would be a good time for us to be coming on stream. So there'll be lots of things to tick off there. Pre-fees, hopefully, Q3, Q4 this year should be done, but it'll be almost in tandem with the definitive feasibility study for some aspects of the program. But people like to get into companies like Impact for a punt, and certainly Arkan, our strategic battery metals project, we're going to see some very significant targets there. Big major drill program by the middle of the year, and we've got high hopes there of delivering a discovery of something a bit more traditional, in particular copper, and maybe some gold along to go with that. So yeah, some real key things to kick the price along, I think, over the next 12 months.
Yeah, Mike, really appreciate you giving us an update. Thank you again for coming on the third time. Perhaps we can have a catch up later this year or next year, depending obviously what results you want to put out there. If our audience wants to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that? How can they follow your story? Obviously, you mentioned LinkedIn is obviously a main social media platform for you. Is there any other platforms that you're on?
Yeah, look, we are with Investor Hub, and but you can subscribe to that on our on our website. If you go to the website and go to the announcements page, it'll take you through to the Investor Hub. You can sign up there if you want to follow the story. And we're trying to create a community there in Investor Hub with people can actually interact directly with me through there, leave questions on the Investor Hub page, and we're generally back to them within 24 hours, and happy to take calls and emails from people as well. So that's the main way to contact us.
Yeah, we can include those in the show notes as normal, so people can have easy access to obviously follow your story. Right. Mike, really appreciate your time. All the best for 2024. Hopefully it's as busy as 2023, if not more busier, and obviously get the results that you deserve and require. So all the best. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, please share these episodes far and wide to everyone in the mining industry, but also people outside the mining industry. We do need to get the word out there about our industry, about the brand, about mining, what is mining, and all we can do is just keep passing this information on to others outside of our industry, so they get to understand our industry, and it's obviously a necessity for the future of our world. So until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.